Peace, peace, peace. I am Phillip Roundtree, and you are tuned into Rhetorically Speaking. Today is the last day of March, March 31st, or like I like to call it, Corona Day 7,243 and a half. So I'm not the only one who's been cooped up in the crib for this. Yo, all right, I'm over it. I'm over it. I keep trying to come up with these creative ways to talk about Corona. I'm tired. I'm tired of it. I'm tired of having that discussion, but tonight we still gonna have another corona discussion, but it's gonna be from a different lens. The lens is gonna be coming from a social work perspective, from a higher education perspective. So we have my good friend Dr. Ginneh Akbar, who, and I don't care what they say, I don't care what them folks say, she is the department chair of social work at Westchester University. Uh, okay,
Sure.
I'm gonna bring her on right now. See, I'm
No,
not supposed to
get
say
it
that.
right at least. Graduate social work. There's two social work departments. I'm only chair of graduate, and I don't even start yet officially until May 18th. So,
Oh, well, congratulations. You still got it. And like I told her, I am assistant to the department chair of social work, like my man Dwight in the office. But no, the reason why I wanted to have my homegirl, Dr. Akbar, in the building is just because to get this perspective from a college and university higher education standpoint. We know that the coronavirus has definitely hit college campuses. We had some college campuses opening back up, like Liberty University, where they allow students back on campus, even though they try to explain it as um, they're still trying to say that they're taking the proper precautions, but they did open back up. And so I just wanted to have that conversation and dialogue with her. I also wanted to talk from a helping profession, social work perspective, because a lot of us who've been on the front lines at one point, or those who are on the front line at right now, I know we give a lot of love to nurses and doctors and all of those people who have to get out there and be in those streets. But shout out to our social workers and child welfare and all of these different avenues of social work, hospital social workers who have to be present on the front lines. And so yeah, I just wanted to have that conversation. But first, make sure you go over to YouTube, subscribe at Quantify LLC. If you're watching on Facebook Live and you're streaming it, make sure you send in your questions. I appreciate it. But I want you to go over to YouTube too and hit that subscribe button. I'm only about 98,920 followers away from getting paid from YouTube. You know what I mean? So we got to make this happen so I can pay my daughter tuition. Right? I need that to happen ASAP, at least within the next couple years. I'd appreciate it. Thank you very much. If you do want to call in, I'm not sure if we're taking calls tonight, but 267-420-2070. Or you can cash app a brother. Listen, it's rough out here. I'm bringing you quality content, right? I'm bringing you quality content on a daily basis, Monday through Thursday, 8 p.m. to 9:30 p.m. Sometimes I stop at 9 because, listen, I'm grown. I get tired to get past my bedtime, so we just got to make that happen. But I didn't want to be the one to ask for money. I don't like asking for money, right? So I'm going to put Dr. Akbar on pause real quick. And I want to give this PSA to the people who are watching. So be right back, Dr. Akbar. And this is for
Let me see
y'all.
if y'all gave me any donations. Let me see. I'm giving y'all all my wisdom, but where the donations at? Last donation to the school was Richard Harris. Somebody better get on their Cash App. Somebody better get on their Cash App. Cash.me/$FDMG school. I better get some donations. I'm about to hang up.
And so for those who don't know, that was Dr. Umar Johnson. Listen, I'm not gonna get into that that conversation about is he a doctor, where's the degrees, and all of that. I'm not getting into that. But no, as somebody who provides content on a daily basis, yo, you could cash at me. You could cash at me a couple dollars. I don't want to act like I'm begging though, right? And my daughter calls in the midst of this, so y'all can watch how this go down. You, hey, boobo, hey, okay, bye. I'll call you back. Bye. So that was my daughter, right? Phone disconnected 2 hours ago. She ain't called me back, and I sat and I waited. I timed it to see how long it was gonna be before she called me back. But I know she was in the middle of her game. right? She on quarantine. She on shelter in place. She doesn't have to go back to school probably till she's supposed to be in like 12th grade. But that's the reality that we're living in, right? So again, I'm playing with the Dr. Umar, but I'm serious. Please feel free to donate. It's going to a great cause, which is me, and just helping me to continue to provide you all with quality content. But we're gonna bring Dr. Akbar in. So first, Dr. Akbar, how have you been dealing with the shelter in place mandate given to you by everybody and their mama?
I don't think I'm dealing like everybody else. It's a struggle. Like, I go from being okay to being completely overwhelmed to being a little bit sad to being like, what the F is going on? I mean, it's pretty much all over the place. I have found that I feel like it's impressive how we've made working from home all of a sudden be more stressful than going into the job. Like, how have we done that in America? It's like, there used to be a luxury, and now that we have to do it, it's just, I'm fine that I'm on Skype probably no less than 6 hours a day, or on Zoom no less than 6, 7 hours a day. And it's just like crazy. And then my kids are home too, and they got Zoom school. So I'm working, trying to Zoom. They've been with their dad the past 2 days, but the rest of the week I'm be on here trying to Zoom school while I'm working. So I don't know. I feel like, I'm the same everybody else is, trying to figure it out and make it through.
Yeah. So how old are your kids?
My kids are 8 and 13. Well, she'll be 13 in a few weeks. One is in second grade, and the other one is in seventh grade. And my older daughter has an IEP because she goes to a school for special needs. So it's been, I think, a little bit more tricky for her school to try to convert some of the things that she needs to online, because she gets occupational therapy, speech therapy, and things like that. So we've had to adjust even how her therapies are done.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
So with that, how is she adjusting? How are the two kids adjusting to this new routine, right? And it was just an immediate change. So I know how that can be difficult for children, no matter the age, no matter how they are developmentally, right?
Well, I think so my kids, anybody who knows them knows they have like completely opposite personalities. One is like a social butterfly, and the other one, you might not even know she can talk unless she's home and around you and she's comfortable. So I knew they were going to have completely opposite reactions to it. So the one, my older daughter, she was really excited about being able to see her friends on Skype again and seeing her teachers. Her teachers have been really doing a really good job of trying to stay connected to the kids, like sending videos every week, sending emails to the kids every week. And the younger one, she was a little bit less excited, but still figuring it out. I mean, my biggest thing is, which even before this, my kids were lucky because they go to schools that have a lot of resources. And so I'm always just cognizant of that divide between what the schools that can provide and the schools that can't, and so, I'm sitting here reading about how Philly schools are trying to figure out how to get computers and Wi-Fi to all the students. Meanwhile, Layla goes to a private school, and her school in a week or two created a whole new website just for online learning. And so it's like, you think about, like, I feel silly complaining. Like, I have the privilege of being in luxury of being able to work from home and still get paid, having two kids that have schools that have resources. Like Amina School, every kid has a laptop. So they had scheduled a time so that every parent could, they did like an online schedule. You sign up, you go up to pick up the child's laptop, they bring it outside, sit on the ground, you pick it up so nobody has to interact with people. So, you think about in times like of crisis, public health crisis, where the disparities are so much more evident. And so as a social worker, of course, that's something that I'm always thinking about. Like, I feel very lucky and blessed that my kids and myself, that we're able to be okay. But I recognize that that's not the same for everybody. And that, that's upsetting to me. Worrisome as a citizen, but also as a social worker.
Yeah. And that is Dr. Ginneh Akbar. Forget what they say.
They just call me Ginneh.
No. Because I got to let the people know, listen, you pay for those degrees.
Yeah, but that's the same thing I tell people all the time. Like that was that was a privilege too. You
Oh,
know what
for
I'm
sure,
saying? And
for
so
sure.
like I feel like sometimes, this is just a little aside note, but I feel like sometimes these labels, even though I'm grateful and honored for my degree and my education, it sort of puts even more separation between people who the privileged and the people who are not privileged. You know what I'm saying? I was lucky that I had access to good schools. I had access to parents who could help me through my education. I had access to be able to afford school. And there's probably, millions of people out there who didn't have that, who could be a doctor if they had that access. So I'm sometimes just, I just like to think about that. There before the grace of God go, I'm lucky that I was able to do it. And so, yeah, my professional title, but at the end of the day, I'm just Ginneh because I don't
Yeah,
know.
no. Listen, I completely understand. And I guess the reason why I want to say Dr. Akbar, not because we're friends and have been friends for a long time. We were colleagues at one point. Again, you call me Dwight. But I think it's important where we have a lot of uh, people of color who tune in, right? A lot of black and brown people who tune in who will watch this. And I think about if my daughter was watching right now, right? If I'm by me just calling you Ginneh, just view you as Ginneh, right? But if I call you Dr. Ginneh Akbar, that idea of representation that could potentially be me at some point, I think it's critical that I, that we still um, that we still acknowledge what it is that we have, even though we recognize the privilege that we were afforded that others may not have been, if that makes sense.
Yeah, right. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. I mean, in fact, that is one of the main reasons that I even agreed to accept the nomination in my department for chair was because I thought that Westchester being a predominantly white institution, but in our Philadelphia campus, we do have a lot of black and brown students. And I just was really excited to be able to be a steward for our department and a face of our department, like around the social work community and have a black woman do that. I just was very excited about that and very honored that my colleagues thought that I could do that. So,
Oh, no doubt. I mean,
absolutely.
it's well deserved. I've been privy and privileged enough to see the work that you've put in over the years, from DHS to behavioral health and all of these other places, right? And so it's well earned, right? It's well earned
Thank
and
you.
well deserved. And that also brings up another point when we talk about the profession of social work and how it's driven by white women for the most part. Historically, it has been, and still to current day, even though we're starting to see the numbers shift, right? So anytime that, again, we can show that representation, listen, you can be a doctor too in this profession. It's important. Just like as much as I say I hate social work, and I would never tell anybody to get into the profession of social work. I recognize that me being a black man in social work is a big deal, right? It's a big
Mhm.
deal. I'm called on a lot to be an expert for whatever that's worth. And we need more of us within the profession, even though I'm not a fan of the profession, and not even because of the work, but when it comes to just the respect that comes with helping professions. And so we see so many people out here now on the front lines, and we see the social media posts and the thanking of the nurses and the social workers and the doctors, the garbage men and everybody else. It's just like we're now finally starting to get some type of acknowledgement for the
Mhm.
work and the difficult work and how we put our lives on the line every day. So way before Corona, DHS social workers were still knocking on doors with a clipboard to say, listen, I got a report that you abused or neglected your child. Right. And so putting themselves in harm way. And so I guess since we started with this conversation about social work, what impact do you think the COVID-19 virus has had on social work and other helping professions? And how is it going to impact us in the future?
Yeah. I think that's a good question. I think it's yet to be determined. I mean, I can speak just sort of anecdotally from my experience with my students. We had our first class back tonight for my students who are currently in field placements right now. And I teach students that were all getting ready to graduate in May. So they're, sort of mourning the loss of their graduation, not seeing each other at the end of their semester. And these are students who've been part-time in our program for 3 or 4 years now, because most of the students in Philly go part-time. So this was a big loss for them, I think, just personally. But then also, I checked in with each one of my students about how their field placement is going. And so they're not allowed back into field, but there are quite a few sites who are allowing students to do work remotely, like not like teleconference or telehealth or counseling like that, but just finishing up projects, closing out with clients so that we can still kind of try to end appropriately. I think the scary part is that in the United States, it's rare that we are simultaneously going through, like, managing a crisis and also going through that crisis, right? So, like, you might see it in instances like in 9/11, where people in New York who were medical professionals or first responders were going with through that crisis and trying to respond to that crisis. But now sort of all over the world, people are doing that. So you have social workers who are trying to figure out how to end appropriately, how to finish school, how to tie up things at their agencies, while also, losing their job, having loved ones that are getting sick, having children that are at home, trying to manage all this. Like, we're all in this together, all trying to figure out what to do. And so that was very obvious, or very evident with my students today, that it was a mix of, of who people, like, whether people are still working or not. Most of the people are able to end at their field placements, but a couple had like work-based field placements. So even though they weren't technically in field placements anymore, their internships anymore, they still are working at their agencies and they're going in. People that are worried about bringing, things back home to their families. A couple people like had to move. I mean, just everything is just infinitely more complicated. And I feel like my Philly students were students where these are like mostly non-traditional students. So these aren't students that are like going straight through school and only doing school, but they're working full time. They have families. And so I think, I think it's a bit of a generalization, but my Philly students, as compared to the Westchester main campus students, their lives tend to be a little bit more complex. And now with everything happening now, it's just blown everything up.
Wow.
So,
Wow. That is Dr.
yes.
Ginneh Akbar, Department Chair of Social Work, the graduate school.
I'm not yet department chair. You got to stop saying it. You're going to get me in
All
trouble.
right. Dr. Ginneh, Dr. Ginneh Akbar. Bring the beef to me, people. Bring the beef to me. But before you bring the beef to me, hit YouTube and subscribe first. So, no, I think I don't think that's a generalization by any stretch of the imagination. I think when we talk about, the city side of Westchester, right? We have more working adults, and their lives are a little bit more complex than your traditional 18 to 22-year-old students. And you might have a couple more sprinkled in who are a little older, and so it's more difficult, right? So has any of them expressed feelings of, I mean, outside of the regular feelings of frustration and disappointment, have they expressed desire to potentially leave the program, and what have you? And what has been your response to that?
Well, I think that I'm really proud of our department and our university actually for responding so quickly. We were now I sound like, an
You
administrator now,
do.
but we were we were one of the first schools in the area to respond and to cancel classes for the rest of the semester. One of the first schools to shut our field placements down just for the safety of our students. And I actually am very happy about that. I think that what our department has done a really good job in is saying, like, listen, we know this is an atypical time for everybody. We're just trying to get through the end of the semester. So professors working really hard to change courses to online, as like professors all over the world or all over the country are doing right now, working with students to figure out like alternative arrangements for things. For the most part, I haven't had students say that they don't want to finish. I mean, I think that there's another level of sort of understanding of what people's needs are right now. And so we're generally just being more flexible with everything at this point. Like, you need more time for an assignment, let us know. You need some additional support, let us know. You need to miss part of a class because your kids are home and you got to turn your camera off. That's fine. We'll figure it out. We're all just in survival mode right now, trying to make it to the end of the semester. And I think it's a balance also because I teach social work practice and advanced social work practice, and I also teach a mental health class. And so both of those classes, not that other classes aren't important, but those are really important, especially for what we're dealing with even right now, right? Getting people getting people trained in how to deal with like mental health crises and how to deal with like specialized practice issues. So I don't want to like shortchange my students at all in terms of the skills that they need to know when they
Yeah.
graduate. So trying to find that balance between, giving them some leeway to deal with life and also giving them the skills they need to sort of tie up the end of the semester. So we've been working really hard to make sure that the content is relevant and important and not just busy work that they're doing offline, that they're, just got to fill out something, but we want it to be meaningful and to be helpful. And I think for the most part, I've worked a lot with a lot of professors in my department on different, tasks and different projects, and everybody seems to be really, really trying to make that happen. So I feel very proud of the work that my department has done, trying to respond to student needs.
Word, word. That is Dr. Ginneh Akbar. So I guess my next question would be just related to you in this process and wearing this, these various titles. How have you been able to take care of yourself in the process of all of this? Because again, you're at the forefront of it, of having, to construct lessons plans for your students and what have you. You have to be a mother. You wear all these different hats. So how have you been able to deal and cope with it?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I probably wasn't the best person to talk to about self-care even before this happened. It's been a struggle. Like I don't sleep great every night. Like last night, I fell asleep in my bed with my computer on my little desk in front of me. I woke up at like 2 a.m. with the computer still on. I've been on, like I said, I've been on Skype meetings nonstop every day. I have to really uh, I really would like to challenge myself to leave the house a little bit more and just, even if it's just to take a walk around the block, because I've just been in the house so much and that's getting to be a little bit stressful. And I also, we've been open about this too. Like I deal with anxiety and depression. And so I have to be careful not to just isolate, especially now because we're being told
Yeah,
to
yeah.
isolate. And so I have to, I have been more, I'm not usually one to talk on the phone, but I have been reaching out to people more. I have been calling friends. I have been FaceTiming with people and so making an effort to stay socially connected so that I don't just, go into my little hole and cocoon around work all the time. And now, I'm also lucky that I have a very active co-parent. And so I'm able to text my co-parent and be like, hey, can you get the kids? I got a lot of meetings tomorrow. And it's like, no problem. That has been very helpful, especially as we try to figure out what the schooling situation for them is like too. So I have a lot of supports. I feel ridiculous complaining about being on Zoom all day long because I'm like, some people can't even work right now. So I'm really trying to make the best out of it and trying to stay focused on what the big picture is overall. But it's really hard because, I watch the news all day and I'm watching the numbers go up and I'm like, what is happening to the
Yeah,
world,
yeah.
So
Yeah,
I don't know.
no. That's a great response. I think what you highlight is the importance of being intentional. Number one, especially when it comes to your overall wellness and in particular your mental health, and the importance of utilizing the supports around you, because again, it could be the difference between experiencing crises on your own, especially when you're dealing with a lot of stressors from various directions. So no, salute to you for that. I know me personally, I've been going around saying going around. It's only my partner here with me. Like I was speaking to a lot of people, but like quote unquote joke. It probably shouldn't joke about having COVID, right? But us as black folk, we made
Yeah, that's how
we
it's
made
true.
chitlins into a soul food Thanksgiving meal, Thanksgiving Christmas meal, right? So we just take lemons and make lemonade. But yesterday I realized, and she brought it up to my attention earlier in the morning. I felt like I couldn't breathe, right, and I felt like I couldn't catch my breath, and I didn't know what was happening, what was going on. But by the end of the evening, I felt a lot better. And she brought it up. Was like, you could have been experiencing like high anxiety because I have been watching and seeing the tolls rise, and it's not
Mhm.
like they're promoting the 100,000 people who've gotten well. I just
Right.
recently saw it was like a person that was 106 or 102
That
that they
recovered.
just recovered. But no, all we see is this is going to be a difficult 2 weeks, the worst 2 weeks ever when it comes to it, and it's hard to find perspective at times, which can negatively impact our wellness. So, I mean, when we sit back and think about it, it's billions of people in the world, right? And we're talking about, I don't want to poo poo it, these hundreds of thousands of people who might have it, but again, when we look at the macro, right? When we look at the
Yeah.
macro, but unfortunately, when we do tune in, when there is a press conference day in and day out to let us know when we see that your celebrities are being able to get tested and being asymptomatic, but you're being
Or to wait in lines or
or
can't get tests or can't whatever.
exactly, and you're not allowed to. Like it can be frustrating. The anxiety can definitely rise. So no, it's my recommendation for anybody is definitely don't. If you must watch the news, right, find somebody that's reputable. Go to the CDC website. Don't go and watch
Yeah.
Trump. Don't go and watch your news reporters. I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they brought up the reporters that are asking Trump these questions. And the question was, well, these various newspapers and news outlets have health reporters. Like, why aren't they the ones that's there? Because it's this salacious piece that we need as far as from the media, uh, which again doesn't serve us and our wellness in any way. So don't watch CNN. Don't watch don't watch none of those places. I think one of my concerns that came up, I was thinking about the state of HBCUs during this time. And I know you work at a predominantly white institution, but I'm thinking about schools like, and I know Westchester is partnered with schools like Cheney. I don't know if there's still a partnership, but I just think about their viability during times like this. These various schools. I know you went to Morgan State, correct?
No, I
You
didn't go
went
to
to
Morgan. No,
UMES.
I'm like Morgan adjacent. My parents did.
Okay. Yo, little one, what's happening?
What'd you say? I'm sorry, my daughter just came down and asked me about some
No, I
candy.
was I was
What?
shouting her out. I was shouting her
Oh, you
out.
talking about Layla? Oh, she
Yeah.
left already.
But I thought you went to a HBCU.
I
You didn't at
didn't.
all.
No, I went. Nope, never went to
Okay, okay.
HBCU.
All right, you just be fronting like you did. You be at the homecomings in Morgan State,
Yeah, yeah.
Easter.
I just be at
that's
Morgan.
what folk
Yeah.
do. Like that. When you go ahead, never. You just
My parents went to Morgan though, so I feel like I got that family stuff. I'm coming from an HBCU
yeah.
family. Tuskegee, Howard, Morgan. We in
Word,
there.
word. So what do you think that will look like for them going forward? Again, when we look at Cheney, who barely was able to get above water, I think this last year they finally saw some positive strides. So what are your thoughts, just as being someone within higher education and the outlook? Because we know black colleges, unfortunately, do not get the same funding that a lot of these predominantly white institutions get. So what are your thoughts on just their ability to be viable going forward?
That's a good question. I mean, as an academic, I don't have any data on that, so I'm hesitant to speak specifically about that, but I can tell you what I think. I mean, and I think just in general, whenever there's a crisis, whoever is the most vulnerable out of us suffer the
It's
most, right?
life.
And so if
Yeah.
right, exactly, exactly. And so, I would just sort of carry that over to academia as well. I mean, I know that even every school is losing money right now, right? So the ones who are already in a financial crunch are going to be losing money as well. I think the good news is that even in times of crisis, people still do tend to go to school. And so I think that eventually we're going to see numbers drop, but I think eventually it will go back up, But certainly, like the ones who are already having trouble are going to have more trouble. And I think also when you think about who the students are at some of these schools as well, I talked about some of the disparity between Westchester main campus and the Philadelphia campus students. And so if you have a large student population who's worried about, where their job is and where they're going to eat and if they can take care of their family, then higher education is not going to be a priority
Yeah.
likely,
Yeah.
right? And so I think you'll see that as well. That's going to come through in admissions and things like that.
And that's Dr. Ginneh Akbar, a social work professor. Now that you bring up enrollment has lessened across the board. I know I was looking at some data with regards to state colleges, and you work at a state college, but your state college, Westchester University, was the
Yeah,
only one to see an increase in enrollment. Where other
yeah.
schools, there was a multi-thousand. I went to Bloomsburg University, and they saw a
Hmm.
couple thousand person drop. So what can you attribute that to? And this was pre-corona, right? So what can you potentially attribute that to?
That's a good question. I think that we are. I think they are very proactive with marketing. Like I think the Philadelphia campus has helped tremendously. I mean, I know that the Philadelphia campus in our department just opened about maybe like 5 or 6 years ago. But now our enrollment for our graduate social work department, we have more students enrolled in Philly than we do in the Westchester, Philadelphia campus. So that is something that's definitely making people want to choose Westchester. I mean, graduate programs are a little bit different than undergraduate programs, and I'm mostly familiar with grad programs. But Westchester is a big university. We have a lot of name recognition. We had a recent switch in our president over the past year.
My former boss.
So
Wait, it's another one? It's not Chris anymore?
it is
Okay, Chris.
Chris.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
is.
My former boss. Full disclosure, I used to work at Westchester University. Again, the reason why I'm Dwight, I'm never mind. I ain't gonna do it. I'm gonna let you cook. I'm gonna let you cook. It's a fun.
Well, I mean, I can't share with everybody that you got me the job at Westchester. Would you like me to tell that story?
I feel like Dwight. So about how long you been there now?
This is going on my 6th year right
Okay,
now.
so
Yep.
so probably about 6 years ago, I applied for a job at Westchester, and she was one of the references that I put, and they were like, "Hey, do you want to teach?" And she was like, "Yeah, I want to teach."
I said no.
Oh, you said
I said
no.
no. I didn't want to teach.
Shout out to
But then
Paige.
they
I
well,
love Paige.
yeah, we just opened the Philadelphia campus. Like, come check it out. Send us your resume. And so I started off as an adjunct professor there, and I loved it. And I was like, wow. And then I ended up changing careers and having to take Phil out to dinner for helping me get this job. So
Listen, man. Again, I'm Dwight, assistant to the whatever your role is. We're not gonna talk about that, but no, it was an experience for me. I'm glad you had a. I know it's been some ups and downs, like with any profession, in any job. But I'm glad you are able to come out on that other side of it, because again, you're somebody who's talented. You're somebody whose voice is definitely needed. It offers a level of realness, shall I say, to the university, offers some legit credibility for
I mean, does it? I'm torn about it. I feel like I'm gonna show up to the dean's meetings with my braid and my golds in my hair, and they're gonna be like, who she's the what of who? I don't know. But I'm not gonna perform. I'm just gonna be who I am wherever I am. So hopefully, it's good enough. I don't know.
But
We'll
that's the
see.
thing is whether who cares if it's good enough for them, right? Well, even though it matters if it's good enough for them because they're the ones who are keeping you in this position. But you bring your skill set first and foremost, and so you know that's hard to discredit or discount, right? Your specific skill set and the wealth of experience that you have. But yeah, so whatever happens in the future with positions and stuff, I expect something nice little card or or what have you. No, it's
Absolutely. That's like Martin and Gina writing out the engagement card every week. I'm gonna have to do that to you every time I get a promotion or a raise.
yeah. Well, thank Phil. I just want to say thank you for just being you in this process and putting me on the resume. Even though you didn't ask to put me on the resume, you just did it. Right? Isn't that what we do? Like I swear, I feel like I don't know if that's a black folk thing. Like when I fill out
I
resumes and references, I'll be like,
already know who the people are, so I don't even, somebody call me, I know the drill. I know the drill.
I just put random people names down. I had somebody hit me up. Shout out to Kristen Austin. She's starting to work at Westchester actually in the next couple weeks. Yeah, Kristen, is it Austin or Mock now? Dr. Kristen Austin. So she'll be working at Westchester. She just left Bloomsburg University.
What department is she going to?
That I do not know, but again, she's a dope person. I'm glad they're getting more, melanin on their campus because it's needed.
Absolutely.
But I had applied for a position at Rutgers not too long ago, and she just hit me up like, "Hey, reference, all right, just let me know what you want me to say." And I feel like that's just what we do, right? That's
Yeah.
just what we do. Um, so I listen. I really don't even have many more questions. I don't want to go hit hard and heavy with, well, what's the outlook for just social work? Forget it. I'm gonna ask it. What do you think the outlook is just for our profession of social work and helping professions as we navigate this new norm? Will we see people? Do you think we'll see people leave the profession and say, you know what, I'm overwhelmed because this is taxing, this is a lot taking place, or will you see more people say, you know what, I do want to help, I do want to give back. Let me look at a Westchester bachelor's in social work or graduate degree in social work?
No, I feel hopeful. I feel like this is like our moment. I feel like this is the helping professionals moment, right? Like people need us now. We're going. This is a community trauma, and I think that we're going to need people to be responsive to community trauma as social workers always have been. But I think even more so now. I mean, we're expanding somewhat with being able to do telehealth counseling
Yeah.
and things like that, which is interesting because it was so kind of controversial and a little bit frowned upon before. Like, we don't want to do anything over internet. We want to only have face-to-face contact. But now we've been forced to think outside the box about how we respond to people and how we meet with people. So I really think this is one of social work's big moments, to be honest. I think we're going to see more people come into the field and more people want to be helpers. And I think we're going to need all those people as well.
Yeah.
I do want to say one thing in terms of, we talked a little bit about like responding to how the changes in class and adjusting classes and adjusting like university schedules. I do think it's important that we think about just in higher education too, just like I was talking about like my daughter's school, about what people have access to, requiring that people have synchronous learning. To be on Zoom means that we're assuming that they have Wi-Fi, that they have stable Wi-Fi, that they have all the hardware that they need in terms of a computer, in terms of webcam. And that's a big assumption. Everybody didn't have that, So our university did do some things to try to get hardware to people who didn't have it. But I think that that's something that schools are going to need to be thinking about too, as we move more, if we're going to continue to do this for a while. But also just in terms of like requiring that people be on camera. Like, some people don't want to show what their house looks like.
Exactly.
Some people have a lot living in their house. Like, you have no idea what people's surroundings are, and I think that could be another level of frustration or trauma for people, like forcing them to be on camera to have their background shown if that's not something they're comfortable with. I had a professor talk about, a student who had a lot of people in their house, and they were like, I really don't want to be on camera, and I'm trying to find a little spot to go into that's private. Or even in terms of sharing information, right? Like, sometimes we get really personal in our social work classes, and you don't know who else is in the room. You might not want to share with your classmates and their spouses and their kids and whoever else is in their home. So I think as we adjust to this online format, we're going to have to think more about privacy and about just respecting like people's boundaries, and also making sure that people have the resources that they need to be able to do this work.
Yeah. No. That's a great point. This idea of when we talk about social workers, we talk about barriers, right? And barriers to service. And one of the biggest things is access. And
Right.
I didn't even start thinking about, with a lot of these online courses or what have you, where you have to quote unquote be physically present, where there are people who don't want to be on camera, right? There are people who they might just want to show up and not say much that day, but they might be forced to in some capacity. And so with that, I'm just thinking about just a lot of conversations that higher education and not only higher education, just education in general is going to have, right? Everybody isn't computer savvy. Thankfully my daughter within the last year or two has become more computer savvy. But then that's putting a lot of pressure on parents and what have you. So yeah, that was just an interesting point that you brought up. Robert King Graves said these online courses have increased my anxiety. It's a new norm, right? And so just adapting to this change.
Robert Graves, is that my Westchester student?
Yeah, he said Westchester was very progressive in those regards.
Yay, hey Rob.
And so I did an online program for my second master's degree. Reason why I'm 130,000 in debt, but they didn't wipe that out in the $2 trillion package. But I digress. I did an online course, and this was maybe about 5 years ago, California University of Pennsylvania, and it was just 1 year complete online, and I had no idea what the heck I was doing. And you're talking about somebody who's technologically advanced, but to have the entire curriculum and the entire program be online, meeting deadlines at midnight. I missed so many midnight deadlines just
Yeah.
because, or remembering to save something, or remembering to post on Blackboard, or whatever was being used. It was a difficult transition. So I can only imagine going 1 week from being in the classroom to now it's just like this is what we have to do.
And then, so recently, I was doing a training, and the training was supposed to be in Atlanta, but because of all this stuff, it got canceled. So they decided to move the whole thing online, and it was like a 3-day training from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And so they had to like figure out Zoom links and whatever. But we had a bunch of people who had signed up who were on the West Coast. So we're starting at 8 a.m. in the morning. People on the West Coast were on there at 5 a.m. And we were like requiring them to have on their camera and telling them they had to be sitting somewhere, not in the bed, not with a blanket. And, I felt like, oh my God, it's 5 o'clock in the morning there. Like they're exhausted, and it was just things that you don't think about when you're converting to online. It's just like so many things happening at once. It's taken a while to get to adjust to everything. But I think, like I said, I'm happy that a lot of the professors, I think in general, the professors at Westchester are pretty flexible, but everybody is really working hard to just try to make it through.
Adapt. Yeah, yeah. Now, listen, Ginneh, I appreciate you coming on, Dr. Akbar. How can the people reach you?
Oh, I don't know. How can you reach me? So I do have a Facebook, Akbar and Associates, which is like my mentoring and consulting business. I'm also on Facebook just as Ginneh Akbar. I do have an Instagram, Dr. Ginneh Akbar, and another Instagram, which is Akbar and Associates as well.
Word, word.
Yeah. Thank you for having me on. It was a
No
pleasure.
doubt, no doubt. I was, now here come Purplicious Nicole Bennett. She's coming in with the comment. I was sitting on my couch today in class, bundled up under my Snuggie today. Well, salute to you, Nicole Bennett. I'm glad you were able to be relaxed and be chilled in your own home, because I think comfort is such a big thing, and that's why missing out on that classroom experience, because I know me personally, I work better face to face
Yeah.
in
You
that
have a lot of
environment.
students say that like I didn't sign up for online. Like I want to go to class. I liked going to class. And so they're sort of mourning that social interaction that they got, especially in social work classes. Like you get to know people real well quickly.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Well, listen, I once again I appreciate you coming on. Definitely have you on when all of this is over and we could get into some other conversations again, because I'm
sounds
I'm
good.
I'm
Yep.
tired of COVID. Right, my energy is so low to COVID. So thank.
Yeah, I don't like it. You make me act like Dr. Akbar. I'd rather just be Janae, and I had to act like Dr. Akbar right
Well,
now.
this.
So bring me back to just be Janae and not Dr. Akbar.
Oh, ooh. Okay, wait, hold on 1 second. Katidra Argro, I don't know if she wanted me to say her name, but as a Westchester parent and principal, I am not happy with this transition. I would ask you to expound, Katidra, but I don't know if Dr. Akbar has enough time to hear what it is that you feel.
Yeah, I mean, Katidra could contact me. I know Katidra, but I don't know her, under her undergrad or her department or her specific situation with her child. All I can speak to really is what my department has done and how my department has responded. And I think we've done a pretty good job.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I'm
Oh,
happy
no,
to
no, no,
talk to her
and
about.
I can completely appreciate that, because every time I get an opportunity to bash Westchester, I do. But I have to say that the social work department in Westchester was one of my favorites when I did interview there, and just the people that I worked with, my former professor at Rutgers, Dr. Holbrook, and what have you. So Paige, I forgot Paige's last name, but it's Page Buck, yeah. So it was and I feel like it's always, and I would definitely want to let you go, but I feel like it's like usually social work and then everybody else, right? The rest of the
Yeah.
university.
Yeah. And as a parent, I can imagine for Katidra, especially like as a parent, what her needs and what she needs her responses to be are probably different than what I'm thinking of right
Yeah,
now.
and so
Absolutely.
what she said
As
was,
a student who just started, I mean, I'm sure it was completely disruptive, and I can't imagine. But what
she
she
said
said,
that her daughter's professors are not educating her; they're just giving her assignments. She is a biology major. Yeah,
oh,
I
yeah,
feel like if we look at this on a macro level, right? Like not outside of Westchester University, our country isn't prepared for what's taking
no,
place, right? We don't have enough masks, we don't have enough ventilators, we don't have enough hospital beds and spaces for people, and so unfortunately, people are going to die. People are going to get left behind. And so when we bring it down to more of a micro level, it makes sense because nobody anticipates things like this taking place, right? So there is an adjustment period. Now, if you tell me coming back for summer session one that things haven't still been worked on, this professor, and sometimes you just got terrible professors,
Well, here's the
right?
thing, which is, as an administrator, I'll have to think about this. But here's the thing. Unfortunately, some of the things that make working in academia great are also some of the things that make it really difficult, right? So, for example, we have a union at Westchester, and once you get tenured, you essentially have your job, right? So you can't compel a tenured professor that's in a union to do anything other than what's in their contract. Now, out of good faith, the social work professors, of course, are going to try to do whatever they can to make it the most reasonable and robust and meaningful experience for their students. But, I'm not trying to bash other disciplines, but I'm just saying the chair of the biology department can't say I can't force anybody in the department to do X, Y, and Z unless you're an adjunct, because adjuncts have a lot less rights, unfortunately. So one of the things that's so great about being tenured is what tenure is supposed to be for, is to allow you to have that academic freedom to do research and explore and get new ideas and talk about things and not be and you not be condemned for any of those ideas or things that you're talking about or learning, or, sort of encourage you to explore these new ideas and things. But also what tenure means is that if I'm the type of professor that said, I got my tenure, I'm coasting, people can do that. And, that's not my nature to do. So I'm always going to be riding for my students no matter what and riding for my department. But just like in any job, you got people who are going to go above and beyond. You got people who just do a job. Got people that's just going to do nothing.
Exactly, and that was going to be my take on this situation. First, my heart goes out to you for this experience for your daughter and your family. I feel like I feel like this may or may not be an apples to apples comparison, right? But there are people, and I've been involved in conversations where people saying, "Oh yeah, people are going to get divorced and what have you at the end of this COVID thing." If it takes COVID for you to recognize that you're going to get divorced, there were issues taking place before this, right? So I just don't think this professor. I think there might have been smoke prior to this fire that might have been overlooked for whatever reason. Again, I can't speak to that because I'm not privy to that or what have you. But I just think there was probably more or a lack thereof effort being done anyway, because you are who you are before you got here, right?
That's true. But also, you got to remember, some of these professors been in their job 20 years. They might have been teaching biology 101 for the last 25 semesters, and now we're telling them to use online when they don't even know how to record a video. I think it's so many factors
that go
into
what
happens.
Like this. Yeah. No. I definitely agree. Well, listen, Doc, before they calling you the goat in here. All right, I think it's time to call it a day. Once we start getting goat comments, they putting goat emojis. But no, again, I definitely appreciate you. Make sure you go follow her on Instagram at Dr. Ginneh Akbar and Akbar and Associates. So until next time, Dr. Akbar, I appreciate you.
All right, peace. Thank you.
So I want to give a shout out to Dr. Akbar who tuned in and just answer some questions with regards to higher education and the profession of social work and how she's coping, how we're coping, and where she sees this for the foreseeable future. Listen, I'm calling it a night. I'm tired. I done ran about 3 miles, so I'm leaving y'all with this. Let's bring up my man Umar again.
Let me see if y'all gave me any donations. Let me see. I'm giving y'all all my wisdom, but where the donations at? Last donation to the school was Richard Harris. Somebody better get on their Cash App. Somebody better get on their Cash App.
Don't forget to subscribe.
Cash.me/$FDMG school. I better get some donations. I'm about to hang up.
Peace.